very important as Christians that we are part of the body of Christ, that we stay connected. I have a wonderful church, actually. It's a very big church, but it has amazingly great sermons. That's as much as anything, actually. If you go to church, and I very rarely miss out on church. It was very hard during lockdown. I missed out a lot. And as soon as possible, I came back. I love to go to church. I love to hear a great message. I like to be uplifted. And then after church, we usually go out and have lunch with some friends who are part of our group. And we also have the life group that I coordinate, where we meet together every second. We had one last night. It was actually on Monday night. It was wonderful. We just meet together and we discuss things from the sermon. That's part of the system we use. And then we pray together, pray for each other and talk about difficulties and stuff. We talk about anger on Monday. So those kinds of things.
Hi, and welcome to my channel. And today we have a special guest who's about to take us on a journey exploring the intriguing blend of work and faith. Joining us is Jim Penman, the brilliant mind behind the renowned Jim's Mowing Group. Now, Jim's group has over 5,000 franchisees and a turnover of approximately $500 million. It is more than just a lawn care business. It's a testament to Jim's unparalleled success in the business world. But there's more to Jim than just his thriving franchises. He's a thinker, a visionary, and someone who deeply understands the connection between work and faith. So in today's episode, we'll uncover how Jim's personal beliefs have influenced his approach to entrepreneurship, to leadership, and to the pursuit of excellence. Stay tuned as we dive into Jim's insights, exploring the profound ways in which faith can shape not only our careers, but our entire outlook on life. Let's welcome Jim Penman to the show. Welcome to the show, Jim. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah. So I was fortunate to see you speak at EO Sydney. And one thing that really stood out was you mentioning Jesus. And also I could just see through you as a servant leader, someone that was, really taking care of their staff. And it is, relatable. I'm a Christian and actually a newly Christian, probably only about 2-3 years. And I was an atheist. And while I was on the call, I literally quickly Googled you up and I realized that you once upon a time was an atheist and then became a Christian. And so I reached out to you and that's why we're here. And so, I guess my first question for you, Jim, and this podcast is a little bit different. It's not all purely about business. It's really about, your journey through faith. And I believe that we're here to serve God. And I just love to hear your input in it. So yeah, Jim, would you like to share a little bit about, I guess, life before you found Christ and what were you like as a business person or leader back then?
Well, I wasn't in business at all, really, apart from a part-time gardening lawn mowing business. I wasn't just non-Christian. I was sort of anti-Christian in a way. I used to argue with Christians. When I was at school, I went to a sort of a typical Anglican school, which is a fair bit of chapel and stuff. I used to get in a lot of trouble because I would take people up on it, and I would argue about why there was no God and confront people. And they actually, I was going to have a very, very bad attitude. My best friend was suspended briefly in the final year of school and told us to stay away from him as a bad influence. So when we had speakers who were Christian speakers, he and I would go and challenge them, and even went to a Billy Graham concert and just made fun of people, which sounds terrible, but that's what he did. He just sounded crazy. But I must have had some sort of internal spiritual hunger because I was always interested. Anybody come to the door, any Mormons, anybody else, we'd always invite them in and talk to them and stuff. But it just didn't make any sense. And then, how can I explain it? When I was 28 years old, after many years at university, I was walking through we had an O week there in the central building, and there was these kids at the Christian Union table, and I just stopped to chat to them. It was so random, actually. I'd actually been to a coffee shop beforehand. I was invited to go there. I thought I'd go along and talk to these people. And I went down and sat down. I'm pretty introverted. Nobody spoke to me, so I just walked away. But this time, I got chatting to them and got to like them. And they invited me on this retreat. And the first morning of this retreat, you were supposed to sit down. It was quiet time, this kind of thing. Well, I wasn't going to pray because I didn't know how to believe in God or anything. So I just sat down with a textbook, and I had a red pen. And I just wrote down the thoughts that were inside me. I had this very vivid sense that God was calling me. So I sat down atheist and glad I'm a Christian.
So you just got converted like that, in that moment, you just found a calling. And when you say you found that, what was that feeling? Was it a feeling, a voice?
Yeah, it came through writing. I'm very writing sort of oriented person. So I just started to write down what was in my mind, and I just thought God was calling me. And in a sense, you could say I wanted to because it was attractive. It was the most amazing thing that happened. Everything changed. Actually, I surprised a lot of people. The one guy heard that I would become a Christian. He just looked at them and said, Jim Penman, the Christian. Jim Penman, that guy, he's a Christian. Couldn't believe it. I was very vocal, very spoken. And then when I changed, like Paul on the road to Damascus, or Saul those days, I went whole hog, and I joined the Christian Union, became on their committee, and I went on evangelistic coffee shop and did the kids thing at the evangelical convention. We used to entertain the kids with a sort of improv, which was really, really fun. So I did that a couple of years, and I just really adopted it. It was just wonderful. It was the most amazing, joyful, happy thing. And so I guess added to that, I had to where all the really nice girls were. They were Christians too. So.
Yep. They're very.
I felt like God as in the promised land. It was just the most amazing period of my life. A couple of years I got married to a girl I met at church, and went from there.
Yeah. So were you brought up with any faith at all, or were your parents quite atheist type people, and then you just went on your own journey?
Well, we were sort of sent to Sunday school as kids, but sent, not taken. My mother was sort of nominally, I suppose. My father, in the early days, I heard he was a strong churchgoer, but he was utterly an atheist. He wasn't allowed to say so. My mother wouldn't let him say that he was an atheist until, or he called himself an agnostic, until I actually said that I was too. I abandoned any belief at the age of 14. Just made no sense. I didn't believe in it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, when I found Christianity, I think it also came at a point where I had certain values in life, whether it's love, kindness, and all these things. And when I delved into learning more about it, I just felt like it was so aligned, and it was aligned to the way I run my business, is the way I aligned to running my life. And so was it something like that for you that made sense? Because why did it at that time, Christianity made sense to you?
I had a spiritual hunger, obviously. There was something inside me that was lacking. I just didn't have the actual belief. It was life. I just had to make that leap of faith to say, yeah. I guess obviously the values appeal to me. And myself, Christianity is a lot about emotion. It's not always about your head. You can believe in your head that there's a God and everything else, but it doesn't mean anything unless you have that relationship, that sense of Jesus as the mentor. It's like I feel like it's a loyalty thing. It's like I sometimes think about it. My image of Christianity is like I'm a big history buff, as you may know. So
yeah,
I was a farmer or yeoman farmer or something in the old days, and the land is oppressed by darkness, and there was tyranny and everything else. And this army comes to fight against this evil. And there's a man on a white horse leading the army, and he says, "Will you join me in this battle?" And that to me is my image of Jesus. It's like a loyalty thing. It's like he's my person I go to, which is why even when I was speaking to old Christians and they ask me what my and I don't push my faith a lot when I talk to such people, but if they ask who's my mentor, that's the way I look at it. Jesus is my mentor. He's the person. He's the man I follow, and I relate to him very much as a human being, perhaps even more than as the risen Savior in some ways. That's just my own psychology. I love the gospel, particularly the synoptic gospels. Without getting close to the real Jesus the way he was. That's my example. That's the person I follow.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, like I am nearly 40, and it wasn't only a few years ago that I realized that we are spiritual beings in a physical body. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And there's that sense, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're succeeding, you're making money, and yet you're feeling something's missing. What would you say that comes from? Is it like, is there a gap between them acknowledging that we are spiritual, or what is really happening when we're feeling unfulfilled as an entrepreneur?
Well, as a human being, I would say, I don't know. I all I can say is that to me, there was a hole in my heart. There's something missing. It fits in a way that's, like the story they tell about when they about in the days of communism when they tried to get this fish to not like the water. And so they indoctrinate it and they teach it and they do everything they can just to show this fish that water is no good. But then when you actually let the fish into the water, it just swims away because it loves it. And it's just natural to us to be one with God. And how the world around pushes us away and gives all these reasons. It's just part of our nature that there's a God-shaped hole in our life if it's not filled. I love a life of faith. It makes sense to me. I walk and I don't do a lot of long formal prayer except in like a life groups and so forth. But I often pray just, God give me some guidance or comfort me. Or if I think of someone, I say pray for them briefly. I often do it when I'm outside. Actually, I love it. So it seems closer when in the open air. And I love being outside.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because ever since I discovered God, I feel like I'm not alone. I'm not always in control and I don't have to be in control. I could almost just let it go. And I think, a lot of times we learn from personal development about surrendering, how to leave it to the universe, but it's all part of the Bible. It's always been there. So can you share between the time that you were 28 and when did you officially start Jim's Mowing and how a little bit of your background when you started so people get to know you a bit?
Okay. I would have become a Christian when I was 28. I think it was just so it was about 18 months later actually that I finished my PhD effectively. So I've been studying at university since 1971. This was like 1982. So I was 10 years doing this study, this research work on understanding human society, which incidentally, as a matter of fact, one of the things that my studies told me is that Christianity was the driving force behind civilization. This was as an atheist. The notion that Christian values were actually, particularly things like chastity and fasting and Sabbath keeping and those kinds of areas, actually had an enormous amount to do with the rise of Western civilization, the development of character that made it possible. So that was kind of in a way more positive. But I did this very radical rethinking of how society works, and I submitted my PhD, and I had always thought I'd be an academic, but I just met complete rejection. Nobody accepted my ideas. They were just very, very radical. Now, the interesting thing about it was that even though my theory was developed in terms of history and economics and cross-cultural anthropology, the implications were all in terms of physiology, in terms of what we now call epigenetics. We had that word in those days. So it was all. So what I needed to do was to have a research institute of some kind. And that would cost a lot of money. And I had no money. I was $35,000 in debt and I had no potential to do a science degree. So what I decided at that stage, when my PhD was basically not going to go anywhere, was that I had to have enough money to fund my own research institute. So then, flat broke, age of 30, very newly a Christian, I decided I had to become rich somehow, rich enough to afford to do this, which must have seemed completely lunatic to anybody. I'm sure my mother, nobody else did. So I just started full-time mowing lawns. That's basically what it is, with not necessarily thinking that would be the avenue, but somehow I needed to make enough money to be able to fund my research, which I now to the extent of several $1 million a year.
Yeah, I saw that on Wikipedia about this research that you're funding, and it's so interesting. It's so unique that you started this business to fund this research. It shows such a passionate person you are. And so would you say that then you weren't someone that kind of knew, okay, this is the type of business I want, this is what I'm going to do. You were kind of just following one day at a time. Like, how did you all of a sudden now build a business to $500 million?
It was all of that. It was the only thing I knew. It was lawn mowing was all I knew how to do. I had no other knowledge of any business, of anything. I had no useful skills. I mean, a PhD in history does not really fit you for anything in particular, apart from being an academic, which was completely impossible for me. So I just did what I needed to do. And I said, I'll just do this, keep on doing this until something better comes along. Oh, look, I tried a whole lot of different things. I tried in my early days, I tried Amway.
I tried that.
I've got no people skills, so that was a very stupid thing to try. One time I had a mower shop, I had a computer shop, I tried to get a tourist resort going. I tried all kinds of different things. And while I was doing all these things, this little mowing business just keeps on huddling along and just gradually improving it. Because I always go back and look at what am I doing? How can I improve it? I have this obsessive need to improve everything I do, including the most efficient way to mow a lawn and what to do with clients and how to look after them and getting subbies and stuff. I just kept on working on this little business, and it kept on growing. And the other things just didn't work out. Most of the things I've done in my whole life have failed, I must say. Put me in an academic career and all these other businesses, and I just kept on doing that. And then 1988 or thereabouts, a company called VIP came to Melbourne. And they were a franchise company, which I'd never even considered. And they just scared the pants off me. So I basically franchised in self-defense. When somebody asked me how many franchisees I might have one day, I said, maybe have 100 one day if it works out well. So it's a bit more successful than that.
Yeah. And so when you said you were mowing lawns, were you literally doing it yourself for a while? How long was that before you start to actually have a business where people were running it for you?
Well, it's sort of gradually. I was mowing lawns as a student for several years, part-time. And then I started off doing it. And I think after a couple of years, I started putting on subbies and so forth in a small way. I basically went from mowing lawns myself to trying to build up in a solid lawn mowing warehouse. That was kind of the thing I was doing, which was sort of a halfway house. And then I learned a lot about that, how to approach people and how to look after them and how to help them be successful and stuff. So I was kind of already doing these kind of things in a very small way. I maybe had about a dozen subbies at one stage. That was what even tearing customer service, I must say, it was really not a good business. If Jim's had been around knows that I couldn't have competed because I wasn't very good at what I was doing. But then I franchised and I had this concept, and a lot of it, I wanted to approach franchising in a very different way. And one of the crucial things, and this was very much driven by my Christian faith, I didn't want my franchisees to fail. That was a big emotional thing. Now, in those days, in the service industry, and I think it's generally so outside of gyms today, you basically take anybody who'll pay. That's kind of franchising is done. They call it, like, as somebody said to me, how do you choose a potential franchisee? $50,000 on a pulse. Actually, people said that to me. This is what they say. And I thought that was wrong because I didn't want to take somebody's money and have them fail. So I determined that I was going to screen people. So I used to put them out on the road with people that I trusted to say, are these people good? Are they going to succeed? Are they good customer service attitude? I knew that would actually hurt my growth because I would be rejecting people and therefore growing slower. It was done actually for moral reasons, but it turned out to be a very good business decision because what happened is because I knocked back people that I wasn't confident would succeed, and because I put enormous effort into helping my people to succeed as individuals, and I was always talking to them and helping them and trying to advise them and doing everything else, what I used to do was to put a list of all my franchisees together with their phone numbers. And if anybody's interested in a franchise, and they'd say, well, why would I buy from you? You're running it basically from your basement. And here's this company, VIP, interstate, much bigger than you. You've got a fancy office, got all these advantages. So why would I do with you? And I said, well, look, there's some differences, but here's a list of my franchisees. I want you to call them, as many as possible. And I asked VIP to give you a list because I knew they wouldn't give them a list. They had to. And that list, that people who were happy with me was what drove gyms. And we still do this today. And now it's part of the law. You have to give them a list. But I always say that the list of current franchisees urge somebody to ring your current people and ask them. And if you can to make them successful, including choosing the right people in the first place, they'll sell the business for you. That's how it works.
Yeah. So how do you know they're really good? Like, what are you looking for when it comes to you're looking basically for potential business owners, entrepreneurs?
Most people that have the nous to put money into a business will be okay. It's more a case of looking for the ones that don't. Look, there's certain kinds of red flags. For example, young man in his particular early 20s, mother or father is paying for the business. Absolute no. Absolute no. They will not succeed. Never had a case that I know of. Somebody else told me there was one who did, but I've never seen it. So absolutely no from that point of view. So then you interview them, you see whether they speak well, whether they've got sense. Do they ask sensible questions? Do they ask questions? Good questions. Not just how much do I get paid, but how does it work? And you know, what happens if things go wrong? Just sensible things. The bigger the list of questions they have when they came to me, the happier I was. But most of all, I would send them out on the road, people I trusted, and I would say, take them around with you for a day, If they don't do the day, then they get knocked back. So you can just go half a day. It's up. That's enough. That's it. That's a failure. If they turn up late, if they don't organize that kind of thing, if they don't show initiative, if they don't start after the first 2 or 3 jobs, they should jump out and start unloading equipment and stuff without being asked. If they don't follow instructions, like you tell them to, okay, mow around the side of the lawn and then do straight lines. Or when you use the hose in the corner, even if there's just a few blades of grass there or leaves, put the hose onto the garden and then mow underneath it. So you teach them to do these things. If they didn't listen after being advised once or twice, they'd fail. Then the trader would ask me, I'm not sure about this guy. And I said, well, okay, supposing you were looking for someone to run a second trader, which a lot of them had, would you put this guy in charge? And they'd say no. I'd say in that case, if you're not going to put him in charge of your business, I'm not going to put him on either. So it's just those kinds of things. But I didn't make a lot of people that.
That's really interesting. I read in Wikipedia as well, it said that you used to be an angry person at work or something. Is that true? And what were you like as a leader back then versus now?
Lynn, I'd like to say I'm not angry, but I would say if I do discussions with people, wrath is probably my defining sin. My age last and stuff isn't such a problem anymore, but I still get angry. I don't know. I had a conversation just before I talked to you with a franchisee complaining bitterly about the system. This is a guy, I won't even go into what it's about, but it's the element system which is to do with lead fees. It's just very clear what's supposed to be. And he just keeps on going on about it and insulting me and telling me I'm a hypocrite because I don't care about franchisees and this kind of stuff too. It's me annoyed. Now, I didn't respond in any very harsh sense. I didn't show anger because when you send an email, you always look at it as, okay, is this going to help? Is this going to be any better? And this guy is a franchisee, but I get angry. I still get angry.
Yeah.
I haven't slowed down much.
Totally agree. I was angry at my husband the other day. Yesterday was my daughter. I'm always angry. And I think I guess that's the challenge being a Christian is, ideally how you could be as a person, the godly characters that God wants you to be. And you'll struggle with the human being flaws, the sin that you just naturally do. Yeah, I guess what's your daily practice or yearly practice to help you to align yourself to faith? You mentioned about praying. Like, how often do you pray? What do you do to really center yourself and continue to be a good person, good child of God?
Just to go back to anger a bit, right? Our pastor preached a wonderful sermon last Sunday, and it says from Paul, under Paul's letters, it said, be angry, but do not sin. So he's talking about anger itself isn't a bad thing, but what you do about it is bad. And you don't hold on to anger and rage and so forth, and you act in a proper way. So I don't think being angry itself is, sometimes if you see injustice or you see something going wrong in the world, when my franchisees were cut off from work for 2 months for no reason at all in Victoria, I was very, very angry at the Premier for doing it and made my... Because it hurt them very badly and there was no reason for it. So sort of isn't bad. But how do you align yourself? I think it's very, very important as Christians that we are part of the body of Christ, that we stay connected. I have a wonderful church, actually. It's a very big church where it has amazingly great sermons. That's as much as anything, actually. If you go to church, and I very rarely miss out on church. It was very hard during lockdown. I missed out a lot. And as soon as possible, I came back. I love to go to church. I love to hear a great message. I like to be uplifted. And then after church, we usually go out and have lunch with some friends who are part of our group. And we also have the life group that I coordinate, where we meet together every second. We had one last night. It was... Actually, on Monday night, it was wonderful. We just meet together and we discuss things from the sermon. That's part of the system we use. And then we pray together, pray for each other and talk about difficulties and stuff. We talk about anger on Monday. So those kinds of things. I don't read the Bible as much as I should. But praying often more informally, actually. As I said, it's just a part of life. And quite frequently, God, just help me with this, or, I have to think about somebody else. Please bless them and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a wonderful Christian, Lynn. I don't do the whole quiet time stuff, but God's in my mind. And I love that, our pastor said, one of the things that our senior pastor said, a guy in the sermon, he said, I don't know any Christians who flourish in isolation. Be part of the body of Christ. You've got to meet with your people. That's why I said going to church, singing, you get very uplifted, so forth, and then a great sermon, and then go out to lunch with people and with the Christian people, and you talk to them, not always Christian stuff, but about everything, personal everything, and just stay in mesh with people. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. This year, I really have started going to church very regularly. I used to have a goal of just once a month, but I found a really good church that I like down in my area, 45 minutes from my house, actually. But it's so good that I want to come all the time. Now, just talking about business wise, I've always kind of sometimes struggle with like wanting to be more successful, make more money. I know deep down, I want to help more people. But at the same time, there's that kind of sense it's like I should spend more time just focusing on, I don't know, doing godly things, volunteer. I don't know. It's like, how do you continue to really stay hungry in business and, and making more money without feeling any guilt of worldly possession?
It's going to sound strange for me to say this, but one of my great advantages in business is I'm particularly terrible at doing almost everything. I'm not a good manager. I'm not good at finance. I'm not very good at personal relations. I'm not good at social media. I'm not good at lots of things, documents, legal, lots of things. So what I do is I get good people to focus on those things, and I try and work with them. I have very limited skills. PR is one. I'm not too bad expressing what we believe in and teaching, like to new franchises and franchisors. I'm very creative. I'm always thinking of new ideas, new ways. I just have that. So what it means is I'm not actually particularly overburdened by my business because there's not that much I can do that well. So I'm compounding else. So, and I didn't even know how you define as work. You go down and have a chat to people in the office. Am I working or not? I don't know. How you define it? Or I'm reading a book. I'm reading a book about business. Am I working or not? I don't know exactly. Everything gets mixed up. My life is very mixed. I hate taking holidays, actually. I just love work. And it's all, I guess that's time. That's one thing. I always think if you run your business properly, you've got time to do what you need to do. There's a wonderful statement that says no other success can compensate for failure in the home. Now, I drive my 20-year-old son to school, and pick him up almost every day of the week. So that's just part of what I do. It's part of my life. And it's worthwhile. I don't really define things in terms of what's work and what's not. It's what's worthwhile and what's not. Makes us worthwhile. Work is worthwhile to some extent. Church work is worthwhile. And a lot of things can be not worthwhile. Sometimes things you do for business are just not particularly worthwhile because they're not productive, or somebody else can do it better because it's only an ego thing. It's not. But the big thing when it comes to where I have the strongest ideas when it comes to money. And I like to read a lot. I probably read or listen to a couple of books a week on average. So I'm always reading. One of the things I'm very interested in is psychology, evolutionary psychology, the science of the mind, economics, politics, lots of different things. Very interested in the subject to health and happiness. And it's very striking that people think the way to become happy is you work hard, you become more successful, you have more money, you can buy more stuff, you can buy a bigger house and a better car and more expensive holidays and so forth. What the science finds is that when you actually, I'm not talking about Christians, I'm talking about just scientists investigating this. Those kind of things do not really relate to happiness. There's a statement that says that social comparison is the thief of joy, which is Theodore Roosevelt. So if you're just simply out there to make more money so you can look prestigious, it doesn't make you happy. In fact, in terms of spending money, spending on experiences is better, like going out with your family, something like that, or those kinds of things. But the number one thing that we discovered, this is not Christian thinking, this is psychologists and studies, surveys. The one thing you can best do with money to make yourself happy is to give it away to a cause that you're involved in. Believe it, like my research project or this kind of thing. They've also found too that if you want to make yourself happy, doing something for somebody else is actually more beneficial to your happiness than even receiving help. So, human psychology, the amazing thing is they get all these atheist scientists, I know, probably not all atheists, they come to these conclusions. Strikingly looks very much like the Christian gospel in terms of behavior. But I'd say one thing I firmly believe in is that God gives us money as a trust. We are not to use it for ourselves. I try and live simply. It's a little difficult. My wife has more expensive taste. She's not bad. To me, if you want to go out, and I like eating out with friends and so forth and family, to me, pizza is fine. I don't like expensive meals. It just is worth it. It costs too much. This is work clothes. I buy my pencil boots from Kmart. And until late last year, I've never owned a new car in my life. My car was worth about $10,000. Then I bought an electric car, which is for various reasons, but I don't like spending money. The money I have goes into something that I think is worthwhile, which is obviously tithing. I think tithing is really important, and to my research project. And that's
And when you say you don't like spending money, it's more like it doesn't give you joy to spend on things that you don't think is necessary. But when you spend it on the things that you like tithing, which is it's a way of spending, but you're giving away, it gives you true joy. And that's why you do it. Not because you're like, I don't want to waste money. And, when they call someone being rich and tight ass or something like that. But like, from what I'm hearing is that you know truly what is happiness, and hence you spend it on where it actually brings you happiness.
Look, to be honest, I'm not even tempted to spend on such things. I just don't even like them. To me, a meal tastes worse if it costs too much. Or like clothes. Like my son buys me things that are too expensive, and I don't really like them very much. So it's not difficult in that sense to restrict spending to things that are worthwhile. But I'd also feel a bit guilty if I'm spending on something that's indulgent. Like I'm always going around the house turning off lights and turning the heater down, and people aren't using the room and this kind of stuff too, which is a bit of conflict with family.
Yeah.
I just don't like waste. I don't like wasting food. There's only two things that I spend without limit, and one of them is books, and the other is fruit. Okay, any level of fruit is fine because it's healthy and it tastes good, and I think it's good. And certain books, anything, I'll buy any I want to read, and I read a lot, so it's quite expensive probably. But apart from that, I'm very, very stingy. I'm the original Scrooge. I'm a hero Scrooge. I mean, people just I love Scrooge. I'm a big fan of villains, actually. I think they're underestimated. When I was doing the improv in the at Belgrave Heights, when you can make up your own story, I always make myself into the villain because that's the most fun thing.
Oh, wow. I just love your honesty. And so you don't feel like it's a waste if there's only a few years left to life. We all die eventually, and you didn't get to fly on a private jet and drive the Maseratis. Like, it doesn't interest you at all.
Oh, I've got so much to do. I mean, I'm 71 now. Like Google tells me, because my health is really, really good, I'll probably live to my early to mid 90s. That's I've got 20 years left, and I think quite a lot for me to do in that period of time. I think I've got so much to get done. I don't have time for wasting it, that's for sure. I don't want to. Anyway, I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't want to. I hate travel, actually. I really hate. To me, if I'm, I want to work. I like to, by recreational, to go out to my farm and dig potatoes. That's my idea of fun.
So when you mention experiences is something that we can be more happy with, and so how do you have experiences if you don't like traveling? Or what are some of the experiences that you do?
Oh, just social experiences too. I mean, it's important to have contacts. Like tonight, I'm going off to see one of my sons and his wife and his little boy, Joshua. He's the cutest little kid in the world, 9 months old. Now I'll see another one of my sons, and he's coming over with his wife. So we'll just have dinner together. I'll go over there and I'll order, we'll order menu lot, because I find that looks better than a restaurant, because you're in a home. Little kid can crawl around. We always play with him and we jump up and stuff. So that we do that kind of thing regularly. And then I have my life group, and then I have another friends that I meet with occasionally, and so just social engagement. You don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, I'm not living in poverty. I'm not a hair shirt or anything. It's just, it doesn't take much to have a good life. You want to be with friends. You don't need an expensive restaurant. Like having a barbecue or a pizza or something like that. That's ample. Most people in this country can live very, very well just by spending on the things that are useful and valuable. You don't need the expensive stuff. It doesn't help. Once you start comparing yourself with other people, that's misery. It's bad from the point of view of possessions, and it's bad from the point of view of social media, which is why things like Facebook are so bad. I don't. Strangely enough, I'm big on social media, but I don't do any of it. I don't look at social media. I had no idea. People tell me, and I respond to things, but I don't do it because you're always going for the likes and things, and whether you say it's going to get engagement and stuff. I really don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I just love your philosophy of life. It's really simple, and it is true. When we were all locked down, the only thing we could think about is spending quality time with our family. We don't really care about all the luxury things, and sometimes we get caught up in society, and it actually does create more misery. And so would you say that when you were broke at 30 up till you now, build a really big business, things haven't really changed too much? Like you yourself has always felt fulfilled, or like you've only needed simple things to make yourself happy?
Yeah. I doubt there's a happier person on the face of the earth than me. I have a very wonderful life. I have everything. I have a wonderful wife. I love my kids. I mean, always get on well with everybody that I like to, as well as I'd like to. But most of them I get on pretty well with. See them fairly regularly. I have friends. I have a great church. I have great co-workers. I enjoy what I do. It's very stimulating. It's interesting. I have enough time for exercise. I enjoy being out in the countryside. I love it. Being outdoors. Just keeping active. I exercise pretty regularly, at least half an hour a day, plus on a walking and things. So I just have a wonderful life. And behind it, there's a sense of purpose. I have to get up in the morning, and that's, I have a mission, which is my research, but I also have a mission concerned with my franchisees. Every one of my franchisees has my phone number and email address. There's over 5,000 now. People say, you're crazy. How can you do that? Well, actually, in fact, the biggest problem is they don't contact me enough, because when they so often do things to help them, I find out what's going on and say, okay, we can stop this. We can change this. And not only that, but quite often we need to change the system somehow to take account of it. And I think that there's a lot of satisfaction because I see people doing really well. After they started 1 month, I send them a letter and I ask them how they're doing. Now, most of the time they write back and they say, we're doing well. It's fantastic. I'm a franchise, all good support. Sometimes they write back and they got problems. And then I say, okay, like they're supposed to be doing free services, which we pay them for. That's why I'm building their business. So I encourage them and I send them lists of franchisees from other divisions and I advise them and follow up to see if they're doing this. So it's just like counseling and helping, and it's a very meaningful kind of job. I couldn't do a job that I didn't feel I was doing good in some way. It just wouldn't, I don't know, some people just financially manipulate. You can make a lot of money just by buying and selling stuff. But I couldn't live that kind of life.
Yeah. And that's no wonder why, because it's such a strong mission and it's beyond yourself, that you just work so hard all these years. And it's also good to see that if we focus on doing the right thing, serving others, money is just a byproduct of that. Yes. Rather than, I think sometimes what we're sold online is like, hey, start a business, make a lot of money, and you're just selling this attachment to money. But it's so liberating and fresh to hear from you where it's none of that, and it's so important for the world to hear.
The interesting thing about it is that if you look at decisions that you make, if you put money first, you'll do better in the short term, but much worse in the long term. It's my experience. All the best decisions I ever made were decisions that I made against what I thought was my own interest. So it just becomes very automatic after a while. You just don't count it. If there's something that needs to be done, if somebody requires something that's going to cost, you just do it. Not really a question. It's just a way of thinking about things. Now, if you want to justify it, you say in the end it's about reputation. If you have reputation for looking after, doing the right thing, then in the long run it tends to pay off. But you don't really think about that way. You think, what does God want me to do? The decision. I'm always very aware of what Jesus said. Harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than a camel to go through the eye of a needle. That's one of my main go-to statements. It really is, wealth can be corrupting. You can take yourself too seriously. People, because I've been successful, people sort of get in awe of me. So it's really weird stuff. But as I say to them, the better you know me, the less you're awe you're going to be of me. I'm a very intimate sort of guy. So
yeah.
And people who know me well know that. Jim is not remotely perfect or some majestic figure. But you can get puffed up by it. People in awe of you. People sometimes don't want to tell you the truth. So it's very important to break through that and to let them know that you're imperfect and that you make mistakes and that, you need advice. And I often, one of the things I apologize for. I made a bad mistake here. I shouldn't have done that, or that was a silly thing to do. One of my most common statements is stupid me. Whatever, one more mistake. So you can't let yourself get puffed up by it. You can't control you. You can't let status control you. It's always going to be, look, what's God's mission for my life? What does He want me to do? And one of the things I've been very careful of too, especially my younger children who grown up at a time when we're actually they sort of theoretically know that we're quite rich.
That's so funny.
I mean, seriously, we are. Probably not as rich as you'd think for the number of franchisees because it's only a small margin, but we are pretty well off.
Mm.
And I don't see it. Where's the mansions? Where's the private jets? Where's the luxury cars? Where's all this rich stuff that we see about on TV? Not here. You just live like anybody else. You just don't. Yeah.
That is so good too, because I mean that is the best way to humble your kids and give them the true lessons of life. I think as my kids are growing up too, I'm kind of juggling between going, how do I balance between spoiling them, giving them what I didn't have versus giving them the values of life by making them work for it. And what I can see from you is you really have chosen the path of like, hey, you're going to just really live a simple life like me, so that because you caring more about their character than their comfort, and that's what God cares most about.
That's right. Yeah. They don't really, they don't grow up in a rich environment. They sort of know they'll never be trust fund kids. I made it quite clear I'm not splitting inheritance. What I'll do is give my kids help with housing because it is so unfair and so difficult these days to pay because housing prices are ridiculously inflated, which is government policy and something I'm very adamant about. I'm very angry about it, actually, that it's a driving inequality. So I will give my kids help with housing. That's one area. Apart from that, they're never going to have to do anything but work for themselves. And they all know that. They've known that when they were very tiny. Always out. There's no big inheritance coming from dad. But the thing about it too, one of the interesting ways to look at that is you look at their habits of saving. Most of my kids are very, very good at saving. My young son, who's 14-year-old, now he gets reasonably generous pocket money, plus he does other kinds of work. He's also got some investments, so I let him invest in one of my regional franchises. He's now worth about $20,000, this 40-year-old kid, but he never spends anything. We go into a supermarket and he wants to buy this $50 card. I mean, this is the kid is worth like, and he agonizes about, should I buy this game that I want? And I do. And then it is, I can't buy it. And then I think, that was a bad mistake. He's so economical, this boy of mine.
Yeah. I have 3 kids. 2 are savers. 1 is a spender, and I don't know where they get it from because they live in the same household, but 2 cares more about money, but the other one doesn't. But that's really interesting. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. I could sit here all day asking you a question because you've got all these wisdom for me. But I usually like to kind of leave it at the end and ask you, like, I guess ultimately, like, what do you want the world to remember you for? You said you've got 20 years left. And it's like, what's left to be done? And what do you want us to go, hey, Jim was the man of?
Well, the main thing is my research project. We've actually made some extremely powerful breakthroughs in this field I call biohistory. There's something called the Lemming cycle. We figured out what causes it. You know how cycles, lemmings and other animals go to regular cycles? The thing people don't realize is that humans do the same thing, but on a bigger timescale. And they haven't happened to it. We've actually figured out with me and the head of my research team how that works. And we're in the process of just starting to write a book. In fact, in about another 40 minutes, I'm going to meet him for lunch and we're going to discuss this book. So
really exciting. That's
the main thing I want to be remembered for, the research, because I think it could change the world in a quite fundamental way, because if we understand the well springs of character and what brings it down, and we can change it. That's the thing. I want to be remembered in a sense, not to be remembered, but my children. That's an important part of my legacy. I love my kids and I want to see them do well. And it's exciting to see grandchildren coming along. I want that to continue. But I do think bringing children up is raising good children is one of the best things you can do in life. And Chip's great, whether I'm remembered or not. But what we do affects thousands of lives. It really makes it one of my major concerns is that after I'm gone, and I don't intend to retire, but eventually I'm going to be dead one day, I presume.
We all will be, yep.
The company continues in a way that continues to support franchisees and do the right thing by them. I would hate gyms to be taken over by some really money-grubbing multinational which screw all money out of this thing. And they make a lot more money in the short term, but in the end you destroy lives. And that's something that's intolerable to me. So I'm trying to work out systems that will continue. I've got a couple of son-in-laws, effective son-in-law who could be really good in that area. Very fine young man, Catholic family, very ethical, very decent, but also very capable. Maybe he doesn't work for me yet.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see somewhere continuing Jim's Group in a way that continues to support and bless franchisees and not rip them off.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jim. I love your passion. I love your kind of just on purpose for like forever. And thank you so much for this wonderful chat. And I know the audience will enjoy it too. So thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Good to talk to you.